Hello everyone, and welcome to the solution for the sentence reversal problem. For this problem, given a string of words, you had to reverse all the words. So for example, this is the best turned into best the is this. You also had to take care of all leading and trailing white space. If you know Python well, you could have taken advantage of Python's abilities to solve the problem using split and some slicing, or the use of the reversed built-in function. So these are basically one-line solutions to the problem. The issue with these is that even though they are valid solutions, in an interview setting, you'll have to work out the basic algorithm that is used. So in this case, what we want to do is actually loop over the text and extract words from the string themselves. Then we can push the words to a stack, and in the end, put them all in reverse. So let's go ahead and see what this actually looks like. Again, while these are valid solutions, you probably shouldn't do them in an interview setting. You can go ahead and make your interviewer aware that you know how to do this, but it's kind of cheating using Python's abilities. What you really want to do is manually do the splits on the spaces yourself and reverse everything. So what we're going to do is go ahead and do this. So let's go ahead and jump to the solution and explain as we go along. So we'll start by having rev_word function taking a string s. Then we're going to go ahead and start off by making a list called words, a variable called length, which is just going to be the length of the string, and then a list called spaces, which is just going to consist of an empty string, just a space of a string there. And we'll see why we use that in a second. Finally, I'm going to make a variable called I = 0, and that's just going to be an index tracker because we're going to be using a while loop to solve this. So I'm going to say while I is less than length, if s of I is not in spaces, and there's a variety of ways you can do this. You could have also, is not in spaces, meaning if that element in that list isn't a space, you could have also just said double equal sign to that. And you could have also have managed to do this as some sort of for loop, but we're just doing it in these general terms in case you want to switch languages. We're going to say if the element isn't a space, then the word starts at that index. So I'm going to say word start equals I. And then while I is less than the length and s of I is not in spaces, meaning we haven't hit a space yet, what we're going to do is try to get the index where the word ends. So in that case, what I'm going to do is add 1 to I, and then outside of that, I'm going to say words.append, and I'm going to append from word start all the way to that index we got off. And then I'm going to say, line it up with that if that I'm going to add to that index. Then finally, what I have are all the reversed words. So in this case, I'm just going to return my reversed words joined up. Okay. Let's go ahead and test this solution so we make sure it works. I'm going to go ahead and copy some statements. So for instance, if we do this, hello John, how are you? Note the white space, we got an error, so what's the problem? Note space is not defined. So if we go to that line in spaces, we'll do this right here. And now we have you are how John hello. Okay, great. So we know it's working. Let's do one more example to make sure we don't have any more errors. Space before, this should return before space. Before space. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and go over this solution. What are we doing here? We're setting words as an empty list. Length is just the marker of that length of that list. Spaces is just equal to a list with a white space in it as the first element. then I is equal to 0. So we're saying while I is less than length, so while we haven't gone throughout the entire string, basically, if s of I is not in spaces, meaning if s of I is not equal to this, then we know the start of that word is at that index. So then, while I is less than length and si is not in space, which basically means keep going until we haven't hit another space, add 1 to the index. Then, once that while loop has completed, we're going to append to that words list from the word start index all the way to that new I, basically once we hit that. Then, we add 1 to the index and keep going until I is until this is no longer true, until I is no longer less than length. After that, we just join that list together with the reversed words, spaces in between, just one space. So if you want to further develop this solution so it's completely manual, you can also create your own reversal function here. That's pretty easy, so I'll leave that as an exercise to you to go ahead and figure out. So if you want, we can just say return words here, and let's see what we get here. So now we have a list of words in order. So go ahead and write your own function. So I'll say def final output that takes in that words list. And what I want you to do as kind of your homework assignment is fill this in so that the list comes out as a reversed string. Alright, so go ahead and practice manually reversing this list into a string so that becomes something like this. But the point of this section here is to figure out how to use while loops in succession in order to mark word starts and word endings. There's lots of different ways you could have solved this problem, so don't worry if your solution wasn't exactly like this. There's plenty of ways you can do it. You can do it using for loops, so don't worry about that. Again, just make sure you understand how to do this solution, and as long as your solution works, you should be fine. Alright everyone, thanks, and I'll see you at the next lecture.